Ah, well, now I have to be careful what I say. But you said,
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes. So thank you, Sandra, for
Okay, well,
joining
that's
us.
good.
Thank you.
That's good. Okay, now the pronominal prefixes, okay, they have distinctions here which are different, okay, from European languages. I mentioned masculine and feminine, right? That's okay. And I said that the masculine in the singular is an H. In the plural, you'll have something added to it depending on the verb root. The feminine and the masculine in the plural refers to a group of men or a group of men and women. So the tribal names are in the masculine plural.
Yeah.
Now, the language also makes a distinction between singular, dual, and plural. So one, two, and more than two. They make that distinction.
Mm-hmm.
That's not unusual. I think there are a few European languages that do that as well.
Yeah.
I can't think of any offhand, but somehow I seem to remember that. They make that distinction. Okay. Then they do something that no European language does. They distinguish between inclusive and exclusive, which is a distinction between including the listener and not including the listener. That's found in Asia, I think, in Africa as well, in indigenous languages, but not European languages, that distinction. And let's see. All right, so okay, yeah, so
Excuse me,
yeah,
John, when
Yeah.
you say they distinguish between inclusive and exclusive, you're talking about the verb.
yeah, it's a verb feature, and it relates to whether the listener is included in the group or not included.
I see. Mm-hmm.
So, if you say, we live in such and such a place, I would use a different form if I were talking to somebody who lived in Bolton than if I were talking to somebody that doesn't live in Bolton. I would use a different form.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it just doesn't exist in European languages.
It's interesting because it's I don't know if it affects in a certain way the fact that in linguistics, in French linguistics, let's say, the I and the you are deictic, but the he or she, the third person, of singular or plural, they are textual, they are discursive, they are cohesive, textually speaking. So it exclude the I. That means now when we say new, it includes the I and it can include the I, the you, and the third person as well.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it can do all those. If you're talking to someone who is part of the new,
Yeah.
or if you're talking to somebody who isn't part of the new,
Yeah.
it's the same form. That doesn't happen with Wandat. You have to make a distinction.
Okay, I see. It's
I
interesting.
think it'd be
Very
politically
interesting.
useful, I think it's a politically useful thing
That's
to have that.
so interesting. Yeah.
But as I say, it's found in many parts of the world.
But not in European languages.
Yeah, it may have something to do with languages being written or not written. I'm not sure. That's my hypothesis about that.
Yeah.
It might be that, might not be that. Who knows? Who knows? Okay. And then the agent and the patient talked
Mhm.
about. Yeah. All right. So again, they're not quite exactly subject and object because the patient can be a subject. Okay.
It's just-
Then there is the third part here. I'm just there's one what is called voice. Now, voice they have a distinction AT-AT, which means each other, is used to refer to each other. So if you see that, now this comes right after the pronominal prefix. Okay, it comes after that. So the first vowel can be changed. And it doesn't have to be AT-AT, depending on what pronominal prefix appears, but TAT is there.
Can it be similar to active voice, passive voice, or and reflexive voice?
Well, let's see.
La voix réfléchie ou la voix
But I'm thinking it involves each one, some in the group doing to others in the group. They talk to each other. They travel with each other. They something with each other. There is that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They fight each other. These
Yeah.
all would have that.
You know what? Examples will be helpful in this because, because like the structure of the language, it implies structure, but it can imply semantics as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm just trying to.
So that's so I will say when it would be good if you could for next
Yeah. I'm just
yes send us examples.
okay. I'm just going to write that down so I can have. Okay. Whoops. All right. So voice examples. Yeah, next time I'll do examples of voice. I was just kind of focusing in, but yeah. And then there's semi-reflexive, which is just AT. And it kind of has a sense of happening too. What's called middle voice in linguistics. And it's quite common. But unlike the other, it would only have one one player. It doesn't have like two groups like the other has. It's just one group.
Okay.
One subject, whereas the other has
Okay.
a mixed subject of players. But I'll definitely develop some material on that, so you'll have some good material on that, so you can understand what's going on. Now, after voice, the position is the noun root. The noun root comes after that. Now, as in, if I want to say the word Ontario, which is a Wendat word, the noun is Ontaire, which means lake, and the EO means to be great, to be large.
Oh.
Yeah, so it comes right before. Now, sometimes between the noun, if the noun root ends with a consonant and the verb root begins with a consonant, an ah sound is put in between. Okay, so you put an ah, like if you have, yeah. Now, there is, like I say, it's noun roots, but it can also be a verb root plus what's called a nominalizer, which means it turns a verb root into a noun. And I don't, so I have examples here. So for example, Yahiaton means she is writing, right? Yahiaton, she is writing. The Ya is the she. Now, if I want to turn the verb hiaton into the verb root into a noun, I would add sha to it. The sh sound is a nominalizer. It changes a verb root into a noun. So, for example, the word for paper or for writing is yashyantasha. Because traditionally the verb meant marking, didn't mean writing because they didn't write. But and I suspect that yashyantasha came after contact with people who write, because it's sort of the product of writing, the product of writing. And the a part there is a noun suffix. All right. I can do it that one. Now, just to use another conjugation example, which basically saying enoquat is a e-conjugation verb, and it means it is medicine. Right, enoquat. But if you want to talk about medicine, like you want to describe it in some way, then you can change enoquat into enoquasha, which is the noun medicine, enoquasha, medicine. So the T is dropped and the sh is put in its place. Okay. And if I want to talk using the yen or e conjugation, and there is the verb yantio, which means it is a clan, obviously a matrilineal clan, yantio, it is a clan. To make that into a verb, or sorry, make that verb into a noun, what you do here is something a little different. You add qua to it, which is a root suffix, which I haven't talked about yet. So, so yantio qua is a clan or a group. If you want to describe it, then that's how you change it. Right? Yantio qua, a clan or a group. Usually clan, but it also can refer to other kinds of grouping. You know, similarly, in the O conjugation, if I want to say she is living, I would say enohe, she is living. The E sound at the beginning is the partitive that I talked about before, E, or no, yeah, no, she is living. Now, if I want to change that to the word life, I change that A sound at the end to A. There's already an H there, so hey, that's all right. You know, we don't add another H to it.
So is it Ayon Hakwa?
No, for that, it's what for
For life?
talking about medicine?
No, for life.
Oh, no, for life, no, you just drop the E and put in an A, so it's anoha.
Ayon
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just change the one. It's easy because the H is already there. Yeah, you don't have to. So you can have, in other words, you can have two verb roots in a verb, but one of them has to be changed to a noun. It's different, yeah, but hey, it's the way it works. There's a fair number of those. In the list of nouns, there, you know, you can see, you know, I have a thing with a list of nouns. A lot of those nouns are created from a verb. Big surprise, right? The verb dominates this language. You know, the verb dominates this language. Okay, so I'm just, you know, I'm just sort of moving, giving you a general sense, and then, you know, if you can communicate in some way for the next one, okay, I really want to learn about this, and I can do details about each one. I'm just sort of showing this is what the set of things is. Now, of course, after noun roots are verb roots, all right? So that's not a surprise. That's not, yeah. I mean, there's three things that every verb must have. It must have a pronominal prefix, it must have a root, and it must have an aspect. Right? Those are the three things everyone must. Similarly, with a noun must have a pronominal prefix, a noun root, and a noun suffix. Right? So both nouns and verbs have to have three parts. They have to have three parts. That's just the minimum. The maximum for a verb can be really large. I think I've seen words or put together words that have 12 parts to them. Usually most words are between like 4 and 7 parts. Now, once, I was discussing, I can't remember who I was talking to about the sense of, well, somebody said to me, oh, they don't have a lot of words in the language, which bothered me because they have many. So what I did was I took one verb and I created 1,000 words from it. I had nothing else to do that day, right? So I did, said, okay, look how many words I made out of one verb. It was the verb to burn, right? Because a lot of things burn, right? And kind of flabbergasted the person, like, what? Yeah. I think I wrote a piece about that called "The 3 Million Words of Wendat," because there's about 1,000 verbs, just to sort of make a point, like, no, they don't have fewer words. They have ways of creating many, many words. Right? Okay, so after verb roots come what are called root suffixes. All right. Now, sometimes more than one can be used, right? It's not unusual to have more than one. Right? So it's not unusual to have more than one root suffix. Now I'm just going to just go through these just very, very slowly, just a little bit. There's what can be called the transitional. It comes first of all the roots of suffixes, right? If you have a transitional, it will come before any other root suffix. It just talks about there's a change. It adds the meaning there is a change. Now, maybe the most common one is the causative, which is represented by a T. And it has a sense of to cause something to happen. It can also mean, so it can sometimes mean place. You can use it to talk about a place. It refers, the whole verb will refer to a place. It sometimes means for some purpose. Just that, it means for some purpose. This is done for some purpose. The causative is used. There is the causative instrumental, which is kind of confusing. You kind of have to know what, like the logic isn't very strong for this one. It does mean to cause something to be or something to happen. That's generally the meaning for it, but it doesn't appear as often as the causative, but it's fairly frequent. Now, the instrumental makes a lot of sense. If something is the instrument of doing something, if you say this does this in one word, you would use the instrumental, which is KW. So the causative is T, the causative instrumental is ST, the instrumental is KW. But as I said earlier, it can also change a verb into a noun. Because, the word like an instrument of something is a noun. The next one I got to mention, and it's messy. I call it the undoer. it creates an opposite meaning to the verb. Creates an opposite meaning. Let's see if I have an example here. Right. All right, so it creates a sense of, oh, it's not what you think, it's something else. It's the opposite. Okay, wait a second, I'll just come up with an example here. Okay, for example, if you want to say some things are separated, you use the verb to join plus the undoer. If you want to say to detach something from something else, you would use the verb to attach and then add the undoer. So it's kind of undoing something, undoing a particular thing. Now, then there's the dislocative. And like I say, I'm just throwing these out there just so you know what the dislocative, which, let's see. You use it in the sense of going to or intending to. Going to or intending to. So we're going to teach. And it can be used with about to, like, but yeah, it's going to do something. So it's definitely going to do something, both in the sense of it's in the future, but also in the sense of it is my intent to do this. Now, a progressive, you get a different one. It's going about doing something or continuing to do something. So the progressive is there's a continuation of the action.
Yeah.
It is repeating. It is, it is something you are, like if you were planting seeds, you would use that, I'm going about planting seeds. You would use the progressive. Or I'm going about shopping or going about doing anything. Now, there's only two more left. The dative is for the advantage or disadvantage of the person you're talking about. Usually advantage. Dative is a term that's used to discuss a number of languages. But just for the advantage or disadvantage of someone. Yeah, what? I'll get an example here.
Is it the beneficiary?
Yeah, the one who benefits either positively or who suffers from it because it's not a good thing. All right, anyone want to have an example here? Like there's a verb I got here meaning they envy us, and we're the beneficiary or whatever of that. So anything that means, you'll benefit from or things will be bad and it'll happen to you. And the last one's really easy. Frequentive tativ, which means it's done frequently. You know, it's something that's done frequently, repeatedly.
Fricative.
Yeah, like he often sleeps. I think would be, but no, something very, very, you know,
Yeah.
something very, very frequently. You know, he goes fishing a lot of the time, or something like that. You would use that. You would use that. And most verbs will use one or two root suffixes. Most verbs you'll find, when you see a verb, it'll have one, at least one root suffix in it.
Oh.
It's common. They're very, very common features. Not mandatory, but definitely common. And then there are aspects. They are mandatory. You have to put them into a verb. Every verb has an aspect.
That's interesting.
Yeah, every verb has an aspect. It has to.
And sorry, how do the aspect manifest its form?
Well, they come after a root suffix. They're usually what you will find at the end of a verb.
Okay. Okay.
The most common one is called the stative, being in a state, like you're doing it, or it's yeah, that's by far the most common one. Most verbs will be in the stative. I mean, just like, again, I use the word Ontario. It's in the stative because it means it is a large lake. It's not going to change anytime soon. You know, it's in that state. It's currently in that state. Now, the second one, the habitual. The habitual means something that's frequent or repeated. Yeah, if I can find. A lot of the names for, I found a lot of the names for in the Wandat used for the occupations of the French that they were living with, it would have the habitual. You know, he works with stone, he works with bread, you know, she works with this, they work with this, right? That would be the habitual, saying this is what they do. This is what they do. This is a repeated, frequent action. It's a characterizing action. Usually positive, but it can be negative.
Simply, I'm sorry, because I had to go. My dog is sick, so
Yeah, understood.
I missed some parts. So, if I understand well, the habitual, the fricative, and the progressive, they are expressed as a form of aspect.
Well, no, they're not. No, the aspects are stative, habitual, and ones I haven't mentioned yet, the imperative when you're giving an order, the purposive, which you're talking about intention or prediction, and the punctual, which means once, and it appears with one of the three modals, right? That's why they're, you know, they're called aspects. I mean, everything deals with aspects of something, but the label aspect only refers to these parts.
Stative, habitual.
Yes, stative,
imperative,
habitual, imperative,
punctual,
punctual, which is single occurrence. And when you give one of the three modals, when you give the future, the factual, or the optative, you must have a punctual at the end of the verb. You must.
Okay.
And is there a common realization of each of these just to sort of hold them in our heads? Canonical version of the
Okay,
suffix?
wait a second. I'll just, well, the stative is often ends with an E sound, like the letter I in French.
Mhm.
The habitual can be ha, or it can be k, or ak, or ake, right? It can be either one of those two. It can be s. I think, it can be any one of those, depending upon the sounds around it. But the s is very, very common. The imperative has the same sounds as the punctual. I'll mention that a little bit later, same sounds. Now the purposive, which refers to intention or prediction or
Yeah.
on the way to do something, ends with an A sound, an EH, A. Yeah.
Thank you so much, John.
Okay, and then the punctual, often it doesn't end with a vowel. It sort of cuts a vowel off. Let me see. There's a thing I want here at the board. This will work. No, it doesn't. Yeah, I'll do a, oh, wait, this works. So, yeah, typically it'll end with ON or EN. Or HE. There, it ends with a lot of different ones, or K. It ends with a number of different sounds, unfortunately. Now, two more parts of the verb. Aspect suffixes, right? Aspect suffixes. One is called the diminutive, which refers to smaller in size or a younger relative. So if I say the sound for it is ah. The sound for the aspect suffix diminutive is ah. So if I say they have me as their child, oyena, that diminutive is automatically there because the child is smaller, younger, whatever, it's that. Also refers to pets. All right, so, and in a way, it's kind of a term of affection for younger family members. It can be added to, you take the term of reference and then you add it, and it's it's like saying we're close, like saying little one to someone in a way. It's close. Another one is a plural, which is strange. It's only used with the verbs to be large or to be long. To be long, right? So it's not used often. And then there's the past. Deep, deep in the past. Often, if the stative is an E sound, the past form will be ne. So very deep in time, a long time ago. You can probably hear the parrot. Yeah, okay. Now, the last part is some people say it's part of the verb. Some people say it's not part of the verb, but it's added to the verb. But it's in the same word. So it's you know, Iroquoian linguists differ as to their opinion about it. One means large or great, and it has the ending wane, large or great, for whatever you're talking about. It's used in the term for elder. It's used in the term for elder because of the respect for elders. It is used for that. The most common one is called the external locative, and it's that yay sound, yay, external locative. It just means on or at, and it's very common. You just kind of throw it at the end of a word, and you'll say at this, at this, at this, or on that. And then finally, the populative, which is rono. If you see any lists of names for people, for our people, rono will be at the end of it. The different tribes within the Wendat had rono, like the Rock tribe was called, what's it? The Wenda Ye Rono. So rono was the, somebody is screaming. But it's, it's used that sense. It's used in that sense. So those be the parts. Those are the parts of the verb. Now, what I think I would like to do in the next class is take one or two of those, or maybe even three, and say, okay, today we're going to talk about voice is one of them, and I'll give you lots of examples and how it's used, how it's changed, how the different ways in which different forms it takes, that kind of thing, right? So if you have any, specific idea, actually, if you have any specific ideas right now, like I notice I have voice under that, so I'm going to be talking about voice. Anything else that you specifically want, so we can get into the details. This was sort of a non-details class. It was just, look, here's what there is. What do you want? So do you want aspects? Because
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
yeah, because
Thinking like if you can make it clear, because in French it's not so it's not so focused on aspects so much, but we study them, but I like to see the differences because aspects, they can be maybe semantic and as well structural. I don't know. But it would be nice to distinguish verbs and
adjectives. Because that's easy. So I mean, I can make a whole class out of those two things for sure. And those are both very basic, and aspects is basic. I mean, it's you have to know that. You have to know that to deal with the language, and it's it also, in learning about that, you also learn about the related languages too. Mohawk, Onondaga, Oneida, Cayuga, Seneca, Tuscarora, they all do this. They all have, pretty much every structure is shared. They are closely related, just like, say, Cree and Ojibwe and like that. They're closely related. I know for me, I can look at Mohawk and almost read, well, I can read most of it because I know, oh yeah, this is what they're doing this with. Okay, got it, so not a problem.
I just think that we need some, now that we have a kind of structural lens, we can look at any kind of exponents of these and see how the analysis fits. That's all.
I think that was my intent, is just to give the big thing and say, okay, So, and aspects in voice, that'll, you'll learn a lot from those two things. You know, and really, you know, it'll explain a lot of things. Hopefully, or I will explain a lot of things with it, hopefully. All righty.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I think it's
Oh.
going to be highly interesting.
Oh, good.
I
I'm
mean,
glad to hear
it
that.
is highly interesting, but if we have some examples, you know,
Yeah.
as well, so we can follow. But yeah, that's a very, how can I say, specific and sensitive aspect of linguistics.
Yes, yes, yeah. Because you got to say,
Yeah, the
okay, this is how
aspect,
it works. Yeah.
yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Thank you,
Yeah.
John. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Yahweh.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you
you.
for your questions.